I don't remember a single moment when my parents ever saw me first. In the Hayes household, my place was somewhere between an afterthought and an obligation, never the star, never the priority. That spotlight had always belonged to my younger sister Sophia, the so-called miracle child who defied all odds by surviving her premature birth, and because of that my parents never let the world forget how special she was. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Riverside, Oregon, in a house that felt less like a home for a family of 5 and more like a shrine dedicated to Sophia. My parents, Helen and Thomas Hayes, weren't bad people in the obvious ways. They didn't scream or hit. They didn't neglect us physically. They just made a choice early on about who mattered more, and from the moment Sophia took her first breath, that choice was never me. My brother Liam, younger than me by just a year, figured it out quickly. Unlike me, he didn't fight for their attention. He simply accepted being overlooked and learned to stay out of the blast zone. Sometimes I envied him for that. But I wasn't built like Liam. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to matter. And I learned painfully, year after year, that no matter what I did, it was never enough. My childhood became a relentless competition, a game I hadn't agreed to play but was forced into anyway. If I won a spelling bee, the response was a polite, distracted "that's nice, sweetheart." If Sophia managed to tie her shoes without tripping, there was applause, cameras flashing, celebrations that lasted for days. If I came home with straight A's, barely a blink. If Sophia scraped together a C on a test, the entire family gathered to praise her resilience and effort. It was never about the outcome. It was about her. Always her. It didn't stop at academics. If I received a book for my birthday, Sophia got a whole bookshelf filled with every title she pointed at in the store. If I got a bike, hers was shinier, newer, the best one available, complete with streamers and training wheels that sparkled in the sun. When I took home first place in a regional science competition, my medal went into a drawer, forgotten, while Sophia's most improved ribbon was framed and mounted proudly on the living room wall where every guest could see it. The worst part wasn't just that Sophia got more. It was that she knew it. She wore their favoritism like armor and wielded it like a weapon. She loved the power, loved reminding me that she could take whatever she wanted simply because she was Sophia. It started small, the kind of things siblings usually bicker over. Toys. Dolls. Games. If I had a dollhouse, she needed a bigger one. If I played with a toy, she suddenly adored that toy too, except hers had to be the deluxe version. But soon it wasn't just toys. Soon she was taking my friends, charming them with her carefully cultivated sweetness until suddenly I wasn't invited to sleepovers or birthday parties anymore. It became clear, if I had something Sophia didn't, she would find a way to take it. By the time high school arrived, she had perfected her craft. She didn't just copy me, she stole from me. Not just possessions, but moments. Recognition. Happiness. And eventually, she would steal something I could never get back, something I never saw coming but should have predicted. If childhood was a battle, high school was all-out war. By then I'd stopped expecting fairness. I knew the rules of the game. If Sophia wanted something of mine, she would take it. If I worked hard for something, she would diminish it. And if my parents were ever forced to choose sides, they didn't even pretend to hesitate. But nothing could have prepared me for what she did my senior year. I was 17, just months away from graduation, and for the first time I had something that wasn't within her reach. His name was Ryan Brooks. Ryan was a senior like me, smart, funny, the kind of guy who looked at you like you were the only one in the room. We'd been friends for a while, and somewhere between late-night study sessions and long drives home, I had developed a hopeless crush. The kind that made my stomach flip when he said my name, the kind that left me sleepless after every conversation. And the best part was, he liked me back. He lingered by my locker between classes, walked me to my car, dropped hints that he wanted more. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. I felt like I wasn't invisible. I felt like I wasn't just Sophia's older sister, I was Clara Hayes, and someone actually noticed me. And that was precisely why Sophia took him from me. It happened at a party, one of the last big blowouts before graduation. I wasn't much of a party person, but Ryan had convinced me to go. He wanted me there, and that was enough. I should have known Sophia would show up. She wasn't even part of my friend group, she didn't like parties. But when she saw me getting dressed that night, there was a sharp glint in her eyes I'd come to recognize, the predator's glint. I don't know what she said to him or how quickly she worked her poison, but I do know this. One minute I was looking for Ryan in the crowd, and the next I found him, his arms wrapped tightly around Sophia, her lips pressed against his, her hands tangled in his hair. The laughter and music around us dimmed. I couldn't hear anything except the sound of my own heart shattering. Ryan's eyes opened mid-kiss and he saw me. Guilt flashed across his face like lightning. He pulled away, but Sophia turned her head just enough to meet my gaze and smirk, a victorious curve of her lips that said, "I won." The rest of the night was a blur. I remember the sting of tears as I stumbled out into the dark. I remember Liam texting, asking where I was. I remember gripping the steering wheel in the driveway, my knuckles white, my whole body trembling with rage and humiliation. The next morning, Sophia acted like nothing had happened. "You're being dramatic, Clara," she said, brushing her hair as if we were talking about something trivial. "It's not like you two were dating." I wanted to scream, but instead I made the mistake of going to my parents. I thought, naively, desperately, that this would be the moment they finally saw her for who she was. That this would finally be too far. Helen just sighed, annoyed. "Clara, sweetheart, you're overreacting." Thomas didn't even glance up from his newspaper. "He's just a boy." I stood there, shaking, my voice breaking. "She did it on purpose." "You know she did." "She's young," my mother replied, waving a hand as if that excused everything. "You're both young. This isn't worth all this fuss." "Boys will be boys," my father added, as if that settled it. As if my devastation was nothing more than teenage melodrama. And that was the moment I understood. I would never win. If I stayed, Sophia would keep taking. If I stayed, I would keep losing. But there was one thing she couldn't steal, my intelligence, my ability to escape. And so I did what I had to do. I turned all of my pain, all of my fury, into fuel. I studied harder than ever before. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly, stopped caring about anything but proving that I could claw my way out of Riverside. And when the acceptance letter arrived with the full scholarship to Columbia University's architecture program, the best in the country, I knew I had found my way out. My freedom. My chance to start over. My parents barely congratulated me. Sophia cried for weeks when she realized there was no money left to send her anywhere. For the first time, she had nothing. And for the first time, I didn't care. I was leaving. New York felt like stepping onto another planet. The energy, the endless lights, the noise that never stopped, it was everything Riverside wasn't. At Columbia, for the first time in my life, I wasn't Sophia's sister. I was just Clara Hayes, freshman in one of the toughest architecture programs in the country. And I thrived. I threw myself into my studies with the same relentless drive that had carried me through high school. I pulled all-nighters sketching designs, memorizing structural codes, modeling tiny buildings with shaky hands but steady determination. For the first time, my work was mine. My victories belonged to me. And then, I met Daniel Mercer. Daniel was a second-year law student with a quiet confidence and a smile that could disarm anyone. He wasn't like Ryan. He didn't play games, didn't leave me guessing where I stood. From the moment he asked me if the seat next to me in the library was taken, he looked at me like I mattered. We talked about everything, his cases, my designs, the future. He challenged me, made me laugh, made me feel worthy. By sophomore year, we were inseparable. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. For the first time, I felt chosen. And then came winter break. "I want to meet your family," Daniel said, his arm wrapped around me as we walked across the snowy quad. My chest tightened. "You don't," I whispered. He laughed. "Clara, it's just a few weeks. How bad can it be?" I wanted to tell him. I wanted to explain the games, the favoritism, the cruelty hidden behind polite smiles. But instead, I just nodded. "Fine," I said. "But don't say I didn't warn you." Walking back into my parents' house felt like stepping into a time capsule. The furniture hadn't changed. The smell of my mother's lavender candles lingered in the air. And Sophia, still smug, still radiant in their eyes, sat in the center of it all, like the queen she'd always believed herself to be. At first, it was tolerable. Daniel was polite, charming even, and somehow managed to dodge Sophia's early flirtations. But I saw it in her eyes. The glint. The predator's glint. She circled him like prey. I prayed he wouldn't notice. I prayed he wouldn't fall. I was wrong. It happened so fast. One morning, I woke up early, planning to make coffee and steal a few quiet minutes with Daniel before the day began. But his side of the guest bed was empty. The door was wide open. A sick heaviness settled in my chest. My feet moved before my mind could catch up. Down the hallway, down the stairs, toward the basement door. Voices. Whispers. Laughter. Hers. I knew before I even opened it. I knew, but I did it anyway. And there they were. Daniel and Sophia. My boyfriend. My sister. Together. Her hands in his hair, his arms around her waist. She saw me first. And she smiled. Not guilt. Not shame. Satisfaction. Triumph. Like she had won again. My knees went weak. The room spun. I stumbled backward, barely breathing. By the time I reached the living room, I couldn't even feel my hands. I told my parents what happened, desperate, broken, hoping this time, they would finally see her for what she was. My mother sighed. Clara, you can't control love. My father folded his newspaper calmly. Maybe Daniel wasn't meant for you. The words cut deeper than the betrayal itself. Not, how could Sophia do this? Not, we'll talk to her. Just, acceptance. As if my humiliation, my pain, was nothing more than bad luck. Something inside me snapped. Years of neglect, of being overlooked, of being dismissed, I screamed. I yelled every memory, every slight, every betrayal. I hurled it at them, raw and burning. And they sat there, unmoved, like statues. Like I was the problem. That night, I packed my bag. I didn't look back. I didn't cry. I just left. Years passed. I built a life Sophia could never touch. I graduated top of my class, joined one of the most prestigious architectural firms in San Francisco, and rose through the ranks until I was leading projects across the city. I married Noah Bennett, a man who was nothing like Daniel, loyal, steady, my greatest supporter. And now, I was pregnant with our first child. For the first time, I had peace. Until the message came. My phone buzzed late one evening. A text from my parents. We miss you, Clara. Let's put the past behind us. Come home. They were hosting the annual Hayes family dinner. Everyone would be there. Including Sophia. Including Daniel. I stared at the words for hours. My first instinct was to delete it. But Noah, sitting beside me, took my hand. Maybe they've changed, he said gently. Maybe they finally realize what they lost. I doubted it. But a small part of me, a small, foolish part, wanted to know. Wanted to see. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The night of the dinner, I walked into my parents' house with Noah at my side. It was like no time had passed. My mother lit up when she saw Sophia, her face barely shifting when her eyes landed on me. My father shook Noah's hand but barely looked at me. And there she was. Sophia. Sitting smugly at the table beside Daniel. Older now, but still wearing that same victorious smirk. He looked empty, lifeless. A shell. I told myself I wouldn't let it get to me. I told myself they were just people I used to know. But Sophia wasn't going to let me forget. All night, she hovered near Noah, her laughter too loud, her touches too lingering. Noah ignored her, which only seemed to make her bolder. Until the toast. Sophia stood, glass raised, eyes sparkling with malice. Clara, she said sweetly, her voice dripping with mock sincerity. I know it must be hard seeing me with Daniel. But thank you for being the bigger person and giving us your blessing. The room froze. My blood boiled. My fists clenched. But before I could speak, Noah stood. His voice was calm. Lethal. You know what, Sophia? The room held its breath. You're pathetic. The air seemed to thicken around us. Forks clattered to plates, conversations died mid-sentence, and every eye in the room locked on Noah. Sophia blinked, her smirk faltering for the first time in years. "Excuse me," she said, her voice sharp but trembling at the edges. Noah didn't flinch. He turned slowly, scanning the room, making sure every single person was listening. "You really want me to spell it out?" His voice carried a quiet authority that silenced even my father. "All your life, Sophia, you've stolen from Clara. Her friends, her accomplishments, her recognition. Even her first love. And now, years later, you're still trying to do the same thing, hovering around her husband like some desperate shadow." Murmurs rippled through the room. My mother shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting between Sophia and me. Sophia's face flushed red. "That's not true," she snapped, but her voice cracked under the weight of the silence. Noah wasn't finished. He pointed at Daniel, slumped beside her like a hollowed-out ghost of the boy I once knew. "You think this man is some prize? He's been flirting with half the women in this room since we got here. He hit on Clara 2 minutes after she walked in. He isn't a prize. He's a parasite. And you're so obsessed with beating Clara, with proving you're better, that you don't even realize he's using you." Gasps filled the air. My aunts and cousins whispered behind their hands. Daniel's jaw tightened, his face pale, and he looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Sophia turned on him, her eyes wide, desperate for denial, for reassurance. But Daniel didn't move. He didn't even look at her. Noah's voice sliced through the chaos. "You've spent your entire life trying to take from Clara. But the truth is, you'll never be her. You'll never have her talent, her success, her love, or the respect she's built for herself. And deep down, you know it." The silence was deafening. Sophia's glass slipped from her hand, shattering against the hardwood floor. My mother opened her mouth to defend her, but Noah raised a hand, his eyes like steel. "No more excuses. No more coddling. You made this mess, Sophia. Live with it." I sat frozen, my chest tight, my eyes burning. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to scream, didn't have to beg to be seen. Someone had spoken the truth for me, loud enough for the entire world to hear. Noah turned to me, his expression softening. "Clara," he said gently, "we're done here." He reached for my hand, pulling me to my feet. And just like that, we walked out. We left the gasps, the whispers, the wreckage of Sophia's carefully constructed empire of lies behind us. I didn't need to say a word. I had already won. I thought that night would be the end of it. I thought I would never have to hear Sophia's name again. I was wrong. It started a few days later. Noah's phone buzzed with a message. Then another. Then dozens. At first, he ignored them. But one evening, his face darkened as he finally opened one. "Clara," he said tightly, "you need to see this." My stomach dropped as he handed me his phone. Sophia. It was her. Texts. Photos. Words so vile I could barely read them. Promises. Threats. Disgusting attempts to seduce my husband. "I can give you more than Clara ever could." That was the message that broke me. 4 years, I had endured Sophia's cruelty, her jealousy, her endless attempts to strip away everything that was mine. But this was lower than I thought she could ever sink. I wasn't going to let her win this time. Not again. Not ever. We didn't warn my parents. If we had, they would have defended her before we even walked through the door. Instead, Noah, Liam, and I showed up unannounced one Sunday afternoon. My parents looked startled, guilt flickering in their eyes as they saw the 3 of us standing in their living room. "What's going on?" my mother asked, her voice sharp, defensive. I held up my phone. "You should see what Sophia's been up to." She scoffed. "Clara, if this is another grudge," Noah cut her off. His voice was like iron. "It's not a grudge." He handed my father the phone. My father's face drained of color as he scrolled. My mother leaned in, gasping, her hand flying to her mouth. "Sophia," my father roared, his voice echoing through the house. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. She appeared in the doorway, chin high, still wearing that practiced mask of confidence. Until she saw our faces. Until she saw Noah. The mask cracked. "What's this about?" she demanded, though her voice wavered. Noah stepped forward, his voice sharp as a blade. "Let me help you out." He pulled out his phone and read her messages aloud, each word slicing through the room like a knife. Lucas, no, Adrian now, sat frozen beside her until his face twisted with rage. He grabbed her phone, unlocked it, and scrolled. His entire body went rigid. Then he snapped. "You sick, pathetic liar," he spat, shoving the phone in her face. "What the hell is this, Sophia?" She stammered, her face bright red. "Someone must have hacked me, it's fake. Clara set me up." Adrian's eyes blazed. "Do you think I'm stupid? This is your number. Your photos. You tried to sleep with your sister's husband, and you think I'm going to believe you?" Her world crumbled in real time. My mother wept silently, covering her face. My father looked at Sophia with something I had never seen before, shame. And Liam, sweet, quiet Liam, stepped forward. His voice shook, but his words cut deep. "You failed us. You spent our whole lives protecting her, excusing her, enabling her. And this is what you created." Tears blurred my vision, but I held them back. I wasn't going to cry for Sophia. Not anymore. I stepped forward, my voice steady. "You invested everything in Sophia. You chose her over me, over Liam, over truth. Now let her take care of you." My mother's face crumpled. "Clara, please." No, my voice was sharp, final. "I'm done." Liam nodded, his jaw tight. "So am I." And with that, we walked out. For the first time in our lives, we left them with nothing. The fallout was swift and brutal. News traveled fast through Riverside, where whispers spread like wildfire. The Hayes family, once admired, once envied, was now a cautionary tale. At church, people whispered behind my parents' backs. At the grocery store, neighbors avoided eye contact. My mother stopped attending her book club. My father stopped showing up to the community board meetings he once ruled with an iron fist. Their golden child had become their disgrace, and with her collapse, their pedestal crumbled beneath them. Sophia spiraled. Adrian left her within a week, slamming the door behind him and telling anyone who would listen that he had been played for a fool. She tried to spin the story, tried to frame herself as the victim of my supposed manipulation, but no one bought it. The screenshots, the messages, the proof was undeniable. Friends stopped calling. Her employers found out, and within months she was unemployed, drifting from couch to couch, her once perfect reputation reduced to ashes. For the first time in her life, no one was there to protect her. Not even our parents. They had nothing left to give. They couldn't shield her. Couldn't excuse her. Couldn't hide what she had become. Liam and I didn't look back. 4 years, we had carried the weight of being the invisible children, the forgotten ones. Now, that weight was gone. We had finally laid it down. I returned to Seattle with Daniel, my Daniel, not Sophia's Daniel, not anyone else's. My Daniel Reed, my husband, my partner, my anchor. The man who had stood in front of an entire room and defended me with a fire that burned away years of pain. Every night, when I felt our child stir inside me, I knew I had built a life Sophia could never touch. A family of my own making. A future no one could take away. One evening, weeks after the confrontation, Liam, Daniel, and I went out to celebrate. A quiet dinner at a steakhouse, laughter echoing between us, warmth settling into my bones like a long-forgotten comfort. When dessert arrived, the waiter placed a small, custom-made trophy in front of Daniel. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands, and laughed when I read the inscription. "World's sassiest brother-in-law." Daniel grinned. "You needed a souvenir," he said, raising his glass. "For the moment you finally won." I laughed, tears slipping down my cheeks. Because he was right. For the first time in my life, I wasn't second best. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't Sophia's shadow. I was Clara Hayes, architect, wife, soon-to-be mother. I had fought my way through betrayal, neglect, cruelty, and lies. And I had won. Sophia could try for the rest of her life to take from me, but she would never succeed. Because what I had built, my marriage, my child, my career, my peace, was untouchable. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living a life so full, so rich, so true, that those who tried to bury you have no choice but to choke on the dust of your rising. And as I lay in bed that night, Daniel's hand resting gently on my stomach, I whispered a promise to my unborn child. You will always be enough. You will always be seen. The Hayes legacy ended with Sophia's downfall. But mine was only just beginning.